Ramon Foster joins us now. I'm so happy for this guy because he's just a broadcast superstar, man. I've listened to him when I've been in Nashville. I texted him at one point, said, man, you're killing it. And you're kind of a quiet guy back in the day. Now he's going to be the color commentator for the University of Tennessee. Congratulations, Ramon. How are you?
Man, I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on, man. My connection good enough for you guys? We're solid here?
Yeah, you look good. It was a little sketchy at first, but you look great now. Tell me how yeah, you look great. Tell me how this all came about with you being tabbed as the next color commentator for the Vol Network.
Man, it was I came back from spring break and I ended up getting a phone call from Glenn Thaxton about my name being in consideration for the role. And I talked to Mike Keith a little bit in between here and there, and it got a little bit more serious within like the last 3 or so weeks as far as just trying to figure out what was the next stages. You guys know I've done Titans Radio with Mike Keith for the last 2 years on the sideline, and I've done draft coverage with them also for the last 3 years. So I had a familiarity with Mike and just the understanding of, I guess he saw my growth and how it pertains to how I call or, speak about the game. And we also be on those road trips with Titans Radio, and he could see my love and passion for the Vols too, not knowing that I was potentially being looked at as one of those guys, because I'll be completely honest with you, I had no idea until it happened that Mike Keith was actually leaving Titans Radio. I actually asked him about it during the season on my radio show. It's like, Mike, I got to ask you, the conversation about you going to UT, and he said he doesn't discuss anything as it pertains to, being in season with the Titans or anything that have to be involved with the Vols. And when this came about, man, and I was asked, I thought about it for probably 3 seconds. I instantly said yes. And it was never a doubt that if this presents itself, and I know it's leaving Titans Radio to go to a college gig, but I told everybody more than anything, I was just like, man, it's the Vols. That's an easy yes for anybody that love UT the way I do. So I was beyond excited, man, to finally get this locked in. And we announced it last Thursday, and it's been nonstop for me ever since.
Hey, let me ask you real quick. What's your Twitter handle so we can share
It is at Ramon Foster on Twitter.
Okay.
And is at the Ramon Foster on Instagram.
All right, good stuff. All right, go ahead, Caleb.
So Ramon, which type of color commentator are you going to be? Because as you know, Tennessee history, there's a couple different ways to go here. There was Bill Anderson, who was very measured as a color commentator. Just, Tennessee's got to do this. Tennessee's got to do this. And then there's Tim Priest shouting, damn it, whenever Tennessee does something wrong.
Yeah, my version, man, I'll be completely honest with you, will be to tell the game as I see it. It'll come with a little bit of entertainment along with the understanding of the game. From my position being an offensive lineman, we somewhat are given the grunt work from the time we are high schoolers all the way through college. You do as you're told, and in that, you somewhat find yourself understanding the game a little bit more. Starting from the line of scrimmage on out, I think is going to be super unique, because as much as we had to learn, as long as I played with what the quarterbacks are doing, then you understand what the wide receivers, and next thing you know, you learn the growth of the game as it pertains to the defense of what they're trying to do to you. I don't want to be a Tony Romo type and try to predict stuff that's going to happen or say, hey, this should have happened on this play. It'll be a breakdown and diagnosis of how I think most people understand the game, but probably a little bit of crazy that comes along with it too, because there's been times I've had to be told, hey, bring it down a little bit. But I'm passionate about my Vols, man, and I enjoy the back and forth of what football is too. And I think that's the unique side that I want to be able to bring to the game. It's not to give you any fluff or just dumb takes or anything like that, but really be in a position to really paint those pictures and be a compliment to Mike.
As a whole, Ramon Foster joining us now. As a whole, who's smarter, offensive linemen or quarterbacks?
Offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's not close.
Easily, okay? And for this reason, quarterbacks don't have to deal with anything. We have to survive. We have to adapt. We have to go from an outside zone to inside zone. Like, quarterbacks get everything catered to them. Everybody wants them on their shows, and they're always the belle of the ball. We have to make ourselves important. So that's why I'll always say offensive lineman.
Ramon, on that note, we've talked a lot about Tennessee's offensive line in spring practice, and they have to replace their whole interior. Am I right in thinking that, particularly in Josh Heupel's system, it's even harder to pick up because you're a former guard yourself, it's even harder to pick up playing interior offensive line than at tackle, because isn't tackle a lot more about just winning one-on-one matchups, whereas interior, you really have to understand the stretch reads and the zones and things like that?
Yeah. It's a little bit of both. I'll be completely honest, which I think both are one and the same. So I played tackle coming out of college and moved into an interior guard in the NFL. My first start at Tennessee was actually at left guard, which is where my career ended in the NFL. But it's fascinating in college with like tackles and the pace. I think more than anything in Coach Heupel's offense, like you got to be good technically. And I think that's where that group is. Like, I think there's a little bit of grace given to tackles for the most part until the quarterback has to hold on to the ball. The thing with the guards, and to your point about it being just a little bit harder potentially, is because everything happens so fast. And in today's game right now, a lot of defensive coordinators, defensive line coaches, and teams have realized, why should we go after the big edge guy that might only get us 6 sacks a year? And I say that respectfully because there's only 12 games in college. But I look at like the emphasis right now on interior defensive linemen, where teams are recognizing the quickest way to the quarterback is to beat up that guard center triangle. And you have to be good, because as quick as they are going, you don't want to have bad technique and get your head over your heels as it pertains to the offense and what you actually have to do. And that's where I feel like Coach Glenn Eberle and his group have to be very detailed in how they go about teaching those guys that system and the pace of it too. And it's simply because it's so fast. That adds more pressure to it. I was actually talking to a couple of those guys last Monday and Tuesday about, at the end of the day, technique saves you. And I think that's super important, because you look at the caliber guys that the Vols are recruiting to, as many 4 and 5 stars as you can possibly get. Well, in that, those guys expect to play. But to your point, Caleb, as far as like learning the system and the pace of it, you do have to let those guys kind of grow and groom themselves a little bit more than probably a true freshman starting at Alabama, because of the system. And it's unique. It was good seeing, William Satterwhite be in a position where he can be one of Heupel's first recruits, be in contention right now for the starting role with them. And I mean, you look at a guy like Larry Johnson right now, who's battling with David Sanders at the right tackle position. Like, he's a guy that's 2 originals right there from Coach Glenn Eberle and Heupel as far as the recruits. It may take them 2 years before they start, but I'll also say this too, unless you're just a stud of a guy in general in the SEC, it may be good for you to sit for at least a half a year or a year to get your weight up, get your strength, and just get your understanding, because now, especially with the transfer portal, you have a lot of veteran defensive linemen that can really expose a young guy just because you feel like you have to go out there and play him.
We had a question from our message board. We'll pull it up. Oh, imagine Ron Slade.
Imagine that.
Yeah. You'd have to soundproof that thing. Let me throw this at you. Who's Ramon's favorite offensive lineman on the team to watch right now? Well, they just had major turnover, so you can pick one from last year, or you can pick one from this upcoming year.
I'm really intrigued right now. It's 2 guys, the 2 I just mentioned. Larry Johnson, in a position where he's kind of I saw him. He looks good. For a guy that has David Sanders either right beside him or right behind him, and the other one is David Sanders. Those 2 guys in general right there, I think, could be one of the most important parts on this team as it pertains to the offensive line play. One, can Larry Johnson hold off the 5-star, and can also David Sanders push Larry as it pertains to where they are ranked on this team? Those are the 2 guys I have a huge spotlight on. If you're asking me who are my favorite guys to follow, I really like Larry and how he's had his head down and stayed in the program and figured out how to be a better player. But you also got to be admired by what David Sanders can bring to the table too. And of course, you play 5 stars or you get those guys in, there is an expectation for them to be elite. So those are 2 guys I'm really watching right now.
Ramon, we had Philip Fulmer on the show back in, I guess it was November, to talk about Heupel's system a little bit. And we talked about one of the underrated aspects of it. And I want to know your thoughts. How much does it warm your heart, just as a former guard, to see Tennessee actually getting back under center for short yardage plays, as opposed to the Butch Jones years where they were trying to call draws on the goal line?
Well, man, listen, I'll say this. When it comes to, running draws on the goal line, if you have a good enough team to get you in, it's perfect. I've heard the philosophy be, as far as going in the shotgun on the 2-yard line, is you got more weapons on the field that the defense can't cover in those moments right there. But the other side of it is sometimes just punch it in, Caleb. Like, I am a fan of look, give me 3 tries to run the ball in as opposed to a ball getting tipped at the line of scrimmage and we only get 1 shot because it's an interception. If you got the guys that are big up front and you allow them to do their job and do it right, everything else sells, because this is one of the only sports where you can take somebody's will, not just like take their will, but physically take their soul away from them, and you give it to your guys to show that you have belief in them. As I said before, offensive linemen are in a position where you're pretty much told what to do all of your career, and you only ask for a few things: maybe a meal from the quarterback the night before the game, and also run the ball. It's very simple with us, man. The only stat we get is what? Sacks and starts. Like, those are the only 2 things given for you. So if you're dominating the game the way you're supposed to, give it to the bigs up front and let them learn a lesson or impose their will on another team. I love that mindset that Heupel and his staff has as far as running the ball.
Let me ask you, is there perhaps a color commentator that you've looked at and said, if I sound like him, I'm doing a pretty good job. I know you don't want to copy anybody, but
right.
I'll give you, for instance, like I always thought Pat Summerall, the way he stepped out of the way, let John Madden do his thing. I'm showing my age here, but I always thought I wanted to be that type of guy. I want to step out of the way and let the guy who knows more about football talk. Do you have a favorite color commentator that you kind of emulate at all?
Not really emulate, just some guys I admire, man. It's 2 people, man, and one of a VFL, of course, but Charles Davis. Just how he goes about his business, just his delivery of it, his ability to be quirky, but also be very informative to his crowd that he's talking to. And I know his is more visual, albeit that it's TV or whatever. But besides him, man, Mike Golick Sr., love him because the way he really, you hear his passion in his calls. And then my last one, man, is just a guy I admire his work ethic. And I think he's a little polarizing depending upon how you look at him or view him, but it's Kirk Herbstreit. I don't know if there's anybody that's signing up for the workload that he has to do the job that he's doing. I know he might have his misses here and there, but I admire people that work, that grind, that take the concept of never saying no. And those 3 guys, to me, I feel like really do it for me. So Mike Golick Sr., Charles Davis, and Kirk Herbstreit, I think, are the guys that I would say, if you're going to model yourself as far as being a grinder in this industry, those are the dudes that do it after, in my opinion.